So I'm Paul Viddles, in case anybody doesn't know me, current chairman of the RSA in Australia and New Zealand. That's our agenda for the day, and this is the 8th RSA Australia New Zealand AGM. We've been around a lot longer than that, but it's the 8th in this way of working that we established back in about 2006. So that's what we're going to be covering, and we'll have the AGM and all the formal business that we need to cover, and then we've got our speaker, we've got Dawn over here, and we've also got Jane and Sue joining Dawn on a panel later, and you get the chance to ask lots of questions, and then we'll have a bit of networking at the end. So welcome to Melbourne, welcome to the home of the first international chapter of the RSA. It was here in Melbourne that the RSA set up its first international chapter in 1971. Obviously the RSA itself going back much longer, to 1754, but the first international chapter in 1971. And there's always been a strong connection with this area and a lot of activity in this area. And thank you to all the fellows here who do help to keep that activity going. If I can just, first of all, before I do anything else, just do the formal stuff and hopefully get that out of the way quickly, but feel free to ask any questions that you have. We've circulated the minutes of the previous AGM that was held in Sydney last year. I can see at least 3 fellows who were at that meeting, and so we need somebody to propose that we accept those minutes. Thank you, Mark Strawn, and second by Keith Heggett. Thank you very much. We've also circulated round the annual accounts. For anybody who wants to dig into the financials or is struggling to get some sleep, there's always opportunities to look at the accounts. Basically, the story it's telling is that we had a painful year in 2011 when we had our governance review, our constitution review, reinvented ourselves, spent a lot of money on accountants and lawyers in order to not spend a lot of money on accountants and lawyers in the future. And as a result of that, our expenses have gone down significantly from that point, and we're now focusing very much on events and projects, and we're going to continue to try and put all our resources into events and increasingly into projects. So we've streamlined the administration, we've streamlined the governance, we've streamlined everything else that we can streamline, and so we're maximising our income, we're minimising our expenses. We have accumulated quite a lot of funds over the last 2 years. Now, we're not doing that just for the sake of having money in the bank. We're doing that to fund the projects that everybody wants to get involved in. So we've got a good stock of funds there ready to put into these projects that are now coming live. So that's the basic story. Is there any questions at all that anybody has on the accounts? All straightforward. Thank you very much indeed. We'll move on. First of all, this is the point of the meeting where we do apologies, and in the past this has been quite a dry sort of part of AGMs. You've probably been to a few where somebody just reads out a list of names, and it doesn't get more tedious than somebody standing up here just reading out a list of names. So we thought we'd try and sort of give you a little bit more of a flavour of who these people are that are not here. Now it's possible that somebody has snuck in. It's possible that as I say this person isn't here, they say, oh, excuse me, I did actually make it after all. So that does happen. Please do shout if I'm telling people you're not here and you are here. We haven't got Professor Judy Clements from New Zealand, who's one of our fellows who's moved across from the UK to New Zealand. She's currently the CEO of the Mental Health Foundation in New Zealand, and she's very keen to get involved in projects over the next few years. John Corrigan, I don't think John's here today. John has been a great contributor to the RSA. He did a session for us at the AGM in 2009 on our teachers listening to children, which is a fantastic session, very stimulating, very thought-provoking, gave us all a few tools to take away as well. John continues to devote his entire life to transforming education and picks up a lot of other passionate people along the way. Professor John Croucher isn't with us today. But it's worth a mention because John has just won the Australian Teacher of the Year for the 2nd time, and winning one award is pretty good. Winning it twice really does cement that achievement. Simon Elsey can't be here today. Simon has been very active in looking at anything to do with helping young people to get into work, He's been promoting heavily the Work Inspiration initiative, which was a UK project that then has moved into Australia, helping young people to get meaningful work experience in areas where they want to ultimately work rather than licking stamps and making cups of tea. We try and get them relevant experience. And so Simon is going to be heavily involved in a number of projects, but he couldn't make it to Melbourne today. I mentioned for Meredith Hall, Dr. Meredith Hall, who's been fabulous in the past year. When I have to give her a personal thank you, when my son was going through his recent brain surgery, she called me regularly and asked me how everything was regularly, so I really appreciate that. Dr. Barbara Hardy can't make it today. Neil Hayes, who also regularly contacts me, and Neil has devoted his life to saving the brown teal, if anybody doesn't know Neil. Anyone wants to know about birds, that's your man. Chris Hobden, special mention for Chris Hobden. He can't be here today. Chris has been a board member of the RSA for 4 years. He's given us great service. Can't be here today because he's just become a father. So last night, Jess gave birth to Amelie Ellen, and everybody's well. Alex Clatt-Smith can't be here today, but Alex is really keen to get involved in projects, and he helped us with the Enterprising Justice event that we did last year, which was such a success. And I'll show you the video from that. Harley Lacey can't be with us today. Harley's doing as usual, trying to help mining companies be more sustainable. I bumped into him in the Qantas Lounge in Canberra recently to get an update on what he's up to. We've got Richard Lupin, Margaret Mark, Stephen Mayers, who I bumped into at TEDx Sydney, Louise McCann, who is very keen to become one of our board members in the future but can't commit at the moment. She's a board member of IINet. And Louise is a fantastic mover and shaker in so many fields. She wants to get involved as soon as she can, and she's offered to be a mentor and an advisor to the board. Sean McVeigh, a special mention to Sean McVeigh because he actually attended the AGM in Sydney. Somebody's just told me this morning, and his name wasn't on the list of attendees, so apologies to Sean. He can't be with us today. Sean is a former winner of the RSA Student Design Awards, and he's very keen on doing anything Student Design Awards related in Australia. Jane May Tucker, a new fellow, can't be with us today. Jane is the CEO of Good Beginnings. She was on our panel for the Enterprising Justice event. She was absolutely fantastic. She came up with loads of practical examples of how to help stop reoffending by helping get greater connections between fathers and their children and their partners. I particularly like sort of having petting zoos and play areas in prisons for when the family visit, so that when these guys come out of prison, they don't have that situation where they haven't seen their children for 3 years, and the whole relationship breaks down, and the only relationship they have is with a dodgy guy who's going to give them the next dodgy job to do. So Jane's involved in all those things. Therese Rain can't be with us today, but she's joined our LinkedIn group, which is fantastic. Professor Sue Roffey can't be with us today, but she's involved in the project on building resilience in children and young people, which Keith's involved in and will tell us a little bit about. Professor John Simons from Macquarie can't be with us, but John recently invited me to speak about the RSA history at the DASH conference, which is the Deans of the Arts, Social Sciences and Humanities. So I had 38 deans in the room, and we all shared our stories about the history of the RSA, which is fantastic. Claire Stretch can't be with us today, but Claire did the video for us for the Enterprising Justice evening, and she actually made 3 different videos, and I'll show you one of those videos which kind of captures the Enterprising Justice event, but she also did a video interview with Rachel O'Brien, who's the commissioning editor for the journal, the RSA Journal, published continuously since 1857 or something. It's actually got some really interesting stuff in the latest issue, including an article by Matthew Taylor on how to get your workforce more engaged, which is really relevant to some of the things we're doing at the moment. And also in the issue 1 last year of 2014, there's a great article here about the difference between being a member of an organisation and being a fellow of the RSA, and what that difference is, that important difference of being a fellow rather than just a transactional member. We have got, who else have we got? We have got, who else have we not got? We haven't got Professor Chris Turney. Some of you may or may not know Professor Chris Turney. He hit the headlines at Christmas and New Year when he led the exhibition to retrace Douglas Mawson's steps to the Antarctic and got stuck in the ice. and was stuck there for rather a long time. And the Australian newspaper helpfully contributed to the intellectual debate by saying that obviously the ice can't be melting if the ship got stuck in it. Professor Tim Wess has just moved across from the UK. He's Dean of Science at Charles Sturt University, and I met up with Tim, and he's looking forward to getting actively involved. He's already connected with a number of fellows. Professor Albert Willis can't be with us today. Albert, who's now 96, he wrote the history. He's written a book on the history of the RSA, and if you've never read that, I'd recommend you read it. It's a terrific book. It's full of great snippets of what we were up to in the 1750s and through the 19th century. And who else have we not got? Two other people that I wanted to mention. First of all, three people I wanted to mention. Max Rupert Angus, who one of our fellows, who is 99. He's our oldest fellow now, after Dame Elizabeth Murdoch passed away, sadly. And Max will be 100 in October, so we should mark that occasion. Good luck to Max. Elsa Travers, I noticed, is our oldest fellow. And before I say that, our longest standing fellow in the room actually is Harold over there. So hi Harold, I think you've been a fellow since 1973, something like that. But you're trumped, I'm afraid you're trumped by Elsa Travers in Perth, who has been a fellow since 1945. So Elsa, you win, I think, on that competition.